Yeah, I think flipping is still great. I just think I've come to realize I don't want to build a business that's built on just so much uncertainty. I think with flipping, there's so much variables out of your control. Even just the value of the house itself, right, is dictated by the house next door, like the comps. And so you can put $1 million into a $200,000 house. If the house next door only sells for $300,000, your house is capped at $300,000. It's not like it's going to be like a $1 million house. And so the one thing I like about commercial real estate and hotels in general is you can increase the value so many different ways, whether it's by increasing the net operating income, decreasing expenses, increasing revenue. You can also have pet fees or amenity fees to increase the revenue. There's so many different levers you can pull to increase the value of it. And it's not capped by just the hotel next door.
Welcome back to the Broke Millionaires, where we document our daily struggles in building wealth while raising a young family. Join us as we talk creative wealth building for everyday people and couples that are struggling in a down economy. I'm Lauryn.
And I'm Joshua Masari, and we'll be your hosts.
Welcome back to the Broke Millionaires. We are so excited. We have Lorenzo Mercado in the house today. And welcome. We're excited to have you.
Thanks for having me on. I love being here.
Yeah, Lorenzo, we met we've talked about a mastermind that we're in, and he's part of that group. And he's got a podcast as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. But it's called the Lowdown, right?
Yep, the Lowdown.
I was actually on that just recently, so you can catch that episode as well. And we are not in the studio today. Today we are in Lake Arrowhead. It's snowing outside right now. It was a last minute family trip. And so we've got a virtual or a on the go studio, I guess. So we'll see how this goes.
We'll see. Well, let's just get right into it. Lorenzo, what was the moment you realized that you were doing all the right things, but nothing was working?
All the right things. That's a great question. I think just hearing, honestly, that from feedback from other people. I mean, I think a lot of this journey feels very lonesome sometimes, especially when you're doing it by yourself. And a lot of my friends and family aren't really doing this. None of my coworkers, I work in the hospital, I'm a nurse. None of them are doing this also. And so just periodically you get feedback from sometimes, just from someone who's everything that you're doing from an outside perspective, your podcast, the clips that you're doing, it's really resonating with me. And as someone who um, is just looking from the outside view, I would totally see you kind of as someone who is, I don't want to say an expert, but you're definitely committed to everything that you're doing. And I think a lot of times, I mean, I just go through my own head. I'm like, is the things that I'm doing right now, like the podcast or the hotels, is this the right decision of what I'm doing right now? Is this actually where my focus should be working? And so I think, yeah, just hearing the feedback from people periodically is probably the best, um, the best feedback that I've gotten. And so I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, I think, where this can feel so lonely sometimes, where there's not a lot of people doing what we're doing, right? I mean, we feel the same way all the time. And, if your friends and family don't understand it, it can be really challenging and kind of hard to explain. And I think that it's really important to have a group and a network of people that are in kind of a similar boat, which is what we've found through this mastermind, which I think has been amazing. But I don't know, I'll let you kind of speak to that too.
Yeah, I mean, it can get lonely at times. Friends, family, what are you doing? Why are you going through this? And we're the broke millionaires. We are struggling, cash flow wise at times, but we've got assets on paper, but we keep pushing through. We keep building wealth, and we know that after another 5-6 years from now, we are going to be set up very well and never going to have to worry about anything. But in the meantime, people don't understand why we're going through this now. Why are you making those sacrifices?
It's a lot of questioning.
Yeah. Why don't you just sell all your houses and not have any worries and just forget about it? So yeah, we get that. We get that a lot. So I totally relate to you there. What do you think is a lie that you believed about money that kept you stuck the longest?
Lie about money that kept me stuck the longest. I mean, I think just kind of goes back to Dave Ramsey, right? Just not having any kind of debt, I think and just paying everything off with cash and really having no leverage, I think is just a mindset that many people get stuck in. I mean, even my mom, she has a property that she sold another rental property and put all this money into her primary home. And even now, after everything I've gone through and this journey, I'm kind of teaching her myself. She's kicking herself in the butt for putting all this equity into this house versus using it to buy more properties. We're using it to have her money work more for her. And so I think just really paying off everything and having no debt is kind of just like the mindset that I had growing up. And a lot of people I know for sure have growing up. And so just knowing that good leverage and good debt is really how you grow and scale.
Absolutely. I think there's a misconception that a lot of people have, the American dream, buy a house, pay it off, live in it forever, and have no debt is like the American dream, right? But it's hard to get ahead that way. You can own your own house and have your wealth in that house, but you're not leveraging it, you're not exponentially growing. That's it. And inflation is going to eat that up, eat that up, eat that up. So if you want to outrun inflation and have an abundant life, you got to use leverage. It's the only way to get there.
Yeah.
What fear do you think is silently kind of holding people back and keeping them broke?
I think just the fear of the unknown. I think that's just really what cripples people. Because I mean, it's hard to just keep doing actions every single day and just staying consistent, not knowing what the payoff is, right? Especially like this podcast that we're doing. Like, we really don't know what the ROI is. I know we're investing a lot of time and money, investing into these editors, into these episodes ourselves, doing the time, and like not really knowing like what kind of business it can bring us, what kind of opportunities it can bring us. And so I think just the fear of the unknown is really what keeps people stuck in their mindset and just like like in their comfortable jobs or lifestyles that they may have.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, we have a lot of beginners that reach out to us and listen to the podcast, and people that maybe they've gotten their first real estate deal or they're looking for that first one, and they're just trying to figure it out. What do you think that most beginners misunderstand about real estate?
What do most beginners misunderstand about real estate? Um, I think just really understanding the risks and numbers and all that. I mean, having done a couple flips now, I kind of just dove into it head first. And thankfully, I mean, I had other partners. And so, like, risks were split, the cost of everything were split. And I ended up losing probably like 60,000 between a couple flips. And had I not gotten into other masterminds or been in these partnerships and just gone full into it by myself, I think it could have put me out a lot. And so I think really just surrounding yourself with other people is probably like the best thing that you can do who are doing the things you want to do, even just one or two steps ahead of you. It doesn't have to be 10 steps ahead of you, and just really bouncing ideas off, those couple people that are in front of you.
Yeah, experience in real estate can be really expensive when you're learning your own. We've all made those mistakes, but yeah, leveraging other people's knowledge is definitely a step up. Take us through that first deal that you did. What going into it, what did it look like, what were the expectations, and what happened, what went wrong.
Yeah, so the very first deal I got, this was on the MLS, so it's publicly listed on Zillow and Redfin. It had been on the market for I think 6 months, and I think it was listed for around like 950 or something, and we were able to negotiate it down to 780, and so we got pretty decent discount on it. And it was definitely a full gut here in the Bay Area in El Cerrito, so it's probably like right next to Berkeley. It's a 3 2-bedroom house, and yeah, we gutted it completely, went down to the studs, did new plumbing, new electrical, new roof. It's pretty much a new house besides the foundation. And of course, it always goes with the first project, everything went over budget. Everything went over the timeline like we expected it to be done in 6 months. It ended up being a year. We tried to do it without permits, got red tagged, so we got stopped by the city for 3.5 months. Um, and then when we tried to sell the property, we used like a different title company to close. And when we first bought the property, they said everything was fine. And then when we tried to sell the property, they told us that the property sat on 2 parcels, and one of the parcels was not ever conveyed to us because the person who sold it to us didn't have the rights to convey it themselves because it was like a woman who was given it to her by her mom, but the mom never went through all the right paperwork, and the mom passed away. And so it's going to have to go through probate and all this stuff. And so this one seller that we had, or the one buyer that we had, initially backed out, and then they said they would buy it from us for a much lower price. And that was probably like the best of the worst worlds because our hard money loan was due. All the 0% interest credit cards that I put for the renovation were due. And so, yeah, it was just like the worst case scenario and a very unlucky one, but it gave me a lot of confidence, and just ability to, in my own, just like processing power and ability to just like overcome strong crazy situations. Um, and so, yeah, ended up losing probably like 30,000 on that first one.
That's rough to lose money, but that's actually not as bad as a lot of other people that we've talked to that we know. So it's, it could have been a lot worse. I feel like you said that your first one always goes, over budget, takes longer. I don't think that's just the first one. I think it's always that way. I think as an investor, an experienced investor, you just learn to compensate for that. So you start adding more padding to your budget, more padding to your budget, more time, because it's not going to get done in time. There's things that come up. So I think that's an ongoing thing, but you just learn to adjust for it and kind of make up for it. The title issue you're talking about. So did these people buy this property with this whole title issue in place?
Yeah, so they bought it with the title issues in place. The title company said that they would help them overcome this issue, however long it took, and they were willing to take on that risk. Um, yeah.
Did you ever follow up, or do you know what ever happened with that?
No, I never did. I was just like, I cut the cords. I was like, I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Run. You're done.
Yes.
We just had, we had a similar situation on a property that we own, and we just cleared title 2 weeks ago. And it was from back in the 80s. It was the family had split up the title using fractional ownership and gave all the kids a percentage. And when it got put back together, when somebody had passed away, there was an issue with the rest of the family absorbing all the shares, and it was supposed to go to their heirs. And it had been changed so many times that I don't think they knew which way was up and which way was down. And so when they sold the property and put it back together, 3 owners before we bought it, there was an error in the way the paperwork is done, and it didn't come out. We've owned this property for 15 years, and this just came out 2.5 years ago. And the county sent us a letter. Oh, by the way, somebody owns 25% of your property that's been, they passed away 30 years ago. So it took us over 2 years, and I just had a hearing in front of a judge a couple weeks ago and finally got the ruling on that. We got, title back. And it didn't cost us anything because title insurance covered all the attorney fees, but it was a long process and we couldn't do anything. We couldn't sell it. We couldn't refinance it. There was nothing we could do because it was a clouded title. And so it's definitely a pain regardless of the situation. So
Yeah, it's something you can't control.
Yeah, absolutely. Lorenzo, what do you feel like is the most overrated strategy that you see online right now?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to everything because I haven't done it all myself, but I know there's definitely a million different strategies for sure. I think everyone can be successful as long as you stick with it and just really kind of tunnel vision at least for a little bit. Um, yeah, I think maybe I don't know, honestly.
Do you feel
Curious what
like when you did your first flip, did you feel like because of everything you see like on TV shows and everything like out there that it was going to be easier than it actually was?
No, I mean, I definitely thought it's still gonna be challenging. I think social media in general just kind of makes everything seem all magical and perfect, which it's definitely not. And HGTV does a really good job of doing that as well. I think flipping still works. I think the most successful flippers though are the ones who control the contractors, or they have their own contracting company, or they're able to get it like at 100% or a 50% discount, like at an auction, or they're getting it like true wholesaling. But I think if you're really buying it off the MLS and getting something that's on market, is the margins are really, really thin. And so the room for error is really small. And so I think flipping still really works. I just think you have to be really effective at buying at a discount because that's when you make the most money.
yeah, and you got to have thick skin because I know it's stressful. Everyone we've talked to has done. Well, we don't flip. We'll buy, renovate, rent, and then maybe exit if it makes sense. But we don't ever just turn around and flip. It's not our game. It's harder to hide. It's harder to defer or negate that tax liability. And what we do is stressful enough. I think flipping would be even more stressful.
We're not adding flipping to the
Yeah, I don't. It's just not in our wheelhouse. But you can definitely make good money doing it. There's a lot of people that do really well at it. Let me ask you this: do you think that real estate's actually harder today, or do you think people are less prepared? Looking back to like maybe 10, 15 years ago when a lot of people were getting in the game.
Um, I think real estate is more challenging today in the sense that, information is so readily available to everyone now. I think with social media and podcasts and like people can learn so much very quickly, whereas before, I don't think that access to information was as easy. And so I think just in the competition aspect alone of just like, the next person next to you can have just as much information much more easier. I think that just makes it more challenging. But as far as like the landscape itself, I mean, political climbing all that interest rates, yes, I mean, definitely think it's challenging right now. But yeah, I think it's always challenging. So for anyone who's listening, who's maybe just like saying, now's a hard time, it's always going to be hard. You just got to get into it.
You just gotta get into it. Doesn't matter when you start, just or it doesn't matter what period we're in. You just got to go. I would say it's changed. It's got the old model's gotten harder. You don't see the 2% rule. Everybody's buying out of state and buying the 2% rule 10, 15 years ago. That does not exist now. So now you got to get more creative. Whether you're doing midterm or short-term rentals to cash flow better, or you're flipping, or maybe your strategy is more equity based. So you're buying higher appreciating markets and you're just trying to cash flow, or break even on your asset itself and covering the expenses, and then capturing that appreciation. But I think it's changed. It's just the game has definitely changed, but you can still do really well at it. But that's some good points that you bring up.
What would you say is the most expensive way that people procrastinate in real estate?
I think the most expensive way people procrastinate is just by not getting into it. I mean, the opportunity cost and time of it and loss of it is just the worst thing, right? So if you wait 5 years versus getting in now, having a property appreciate 5 times, or just like that, we learn about like the velocity of money from Casti, where, money loves speed and how you can multiply money quickly over time. It's just like, if you don't get into real estate now, you're losing out on so much potential money, you know?
Yeah, it's so good.
I think one of the things we always say is we wish we would have started this more heavily before kids.
It's a lot
Yes.
harder with 4
It's a
kids.
lot harder with 4 kids.
Well, you
Yeah.
guys are freaking superheroes. I've said that before, and yeah, people always complain just to say they can't do it, and you guys clearly can do it with 4 children. So yeah, if you guys can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah, that's actually, appreciate you saying that. Makes us makes me feel a little bit
Thank
better about
you.
everything we're going
Yeah.
through. So,
Yeah,
all
100%. You
right.
guys need to give yourself more slack.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Um, do you think that people, like, they're looking to get into real estate but haven't taken that step and haven't taken the action that you're talking about? Do you think it's because they're afraid of losing money, or maybe they're embarrassed of having a deal go sideways?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, there's fear of losing money is definitely a huge piece. Just going back to that fear of the unknown, right? But also, I think for me, issues that I've had, or just barriers, I guess, is just right now we're all building in public, right? And so that fear of just kind of being thought of as a failure for a deal that doesn't go right and all that, I think is just another big fear that people have. Just fear of going back to just judgment of others. Because when you're building in public like this, it can feel a lot more scary if when things go wrong.
Yeah, for sure. What Now, you talked about your first deal. Have you done other flips after that one?
Yeah, so I did one flip in 2023, and then 2 flips that closed late last year. So I had done 3 total before deciding to move on.
Okay. And how did those ones work out?
Um, Also many things that could have gone wrong went wrong. Like the second one that I bought was a fire damaged property. This one I got off market from a wholesaler. Someone had thrown a Molotov cocktail through the kitchen window. And then yeah, the house was just completely smoke damaged inside. Thankfully, there wasn't too much actually damage to the structure. Just had to replace a couple trusses on the roof. Um, but yeah, that one went probably 6 months over timeline because of issues with the local electrical company. I, I thought I had to wait until everything was done before the 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 PG&E company would turn the power back on, because the power was not on the entire time, and so my contractors were working with generators the whole time. Because when there's a fire, they cut the wires from the pole to the house, and so after everything was pretty much done, I thought I could just be like, everything's done. We got the sticker from the city that said they approved the panel. Can you just turn the power back on? And they're like, no, absolutely not. That's not that easy. And so they said they had to go through several months of estimating, several months of like permitting with the city. Long story short, when they did their estimating, they said that the new upgraded panel would put the power pole like over capacity, because when people typically upgrade their panels, they don't go through this process that you're supposed to go through with the city, where you're actually supposed to put a formal application where they do this estimating to make sure that the power pole isn't oversupplied. And so they pretty much told me they have to replace the whole power pole. And so that was going to be delayed. Like they said, it could take up to 12 months. So I was like, well, that would screw me. So thankfully it ended up being only 6 months, but still like that completely changed like the environment of the house when I sold it. Comps were lower, everything was lower, and so I ended up losing 30K on that one. And then the other property that I had was in Berkeley. Everything actually went pretty well, just also kind of went over budget. So yeah.
See, so it's not always only the first one that goes over budget.
And did you say that you have exited flipping now, or are you still flipping?
I'm done flipping. So now I'm going into hotels.
Okay.
Why do you say you're done with flipping? Just because it hasn't worked out for you, or you just moving on to something else? Like, because flipping's still obviously a viable strategy.
Just a quick disclaimer. The information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial, tax, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions. Your individual circumstances may differ and require specific strategies not discussed here. Now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah, I think flipping is still great. I just think I've come to realize like I don't want to build a business that's built on just so much uncertainty. I think with flipping, there's so much variables out of your control. Like even just like the value of the house itself, right, is dictated by the house next door, like the comps. And so you can put $1 million into a $200,000 house. If the house next door only sells for 300,000, your house is capped at 300,000. It's not like it's going to be like a $1 million house. And so the one thing I like about commercial real estate and hotels in general is you can increase the value so many different ways, whether it's by increasing the net operating income, decreasing expenses, increasing revenue. You can also have like pet fees or amenity fees to increase the revenue. Like there's so many different levers you can pull to increase the value of it. And it's not capped by just like the hotel next door.
Right. So because the value is not, let's break this down for our listeners. The value of a commercial building is not like an appraisal like you would see in a residential home.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go into how that breaks down and how that's valued?
Yeah. So, as I was saying, for single family homes, the houses are based on comps, ARV after repair value, and it's typically like 3 to 6 months within like say a half-mile radius. And it's like for like, so you can't compare 2-story house to 1-story house. But anyways, it's single family homes are compared to one another just based on like the neighbor next door. For commercial real estate, it's valued based on the net operating income, which is the income that a property brings in minus the expenses that it takes to run it. This is the net operating income, and that is divided by the cap rate. And the cap rate is just a percentage that is a representation of like a market's representation, kind of like of risk. And so typically here in California, cap rates will be a lot lower. Like in San Diego, a cap rate might be in the 3 or 4s, whereas somewhere more rural, say like in the mountains or somewhere on like the Midwest, cap rates might be a 9 or 10. So if you get the NOI divided by the cap rate, that's kind of how they evaluate the property of a commercial property.
Yeah, we did it. We did a video, like a 3-minute video on how you evaluate these and how you push appreciation. And you can take a property and adjust the rents up a little bit, maybe do some light renovations, and you can increase that value way faster than you'll ever be able to do with the market appreciation. It's just not. Yeah, it's a totally different animal. So I totally get there. What's your current like projection on? You said you are getting the hotels. Have you bought a hotel? Are you looking to buy it? What's your current strategy
Yeah,
there?
no hotels yet. It's much slower process than single family homes. I've gone and toured probably 5 different hotels at this point. I looked at 2 in North Carolina, looked at 1 in San Diego, looking at 1 in Mendocino. So the buy box is definitely multiple places. We're looking for like 10 to 20 rooms, I'd say. Definitely value add, just being able to force appreciation, kind of like single family homes. And we're trying to make it more unique experiential stays, not trying to just do a branded hotel like a Marriott or anything like that. It's definitely going to be an independent boutique hotel. And I'm going in with a couple partners that we've met through the mastermind as well. And yeah, we've gotten close on a couple deals. We're actually getting close to getting one under contract. So we sent an LOI, they agreed to it, and we've been going back and forth with the sellers for a few months now, trying to get an agreement on the purchase and sale agreement, the PSA. But yeah, we're getting close. It's just it takes a lot longer to do this than single family residential.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's exciting. How are you funding this? Are you raising money for this? Is it just your own cash and bank? How are you bringing that deal together?
Yeah, so this one's a combination of putting in some of our own capital, but also raising a majority of it.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
I'm curious too. So, I mean, I know that obviously we're both in California. Real estate is so much more expensive here. Do you see that in commercial as well while looking at these hotels? Or is it kind of a little, a little more even playing field with the hotels?
Yeah, they're definitely more expensive here in California. The one that we're looking at is in a little city or county called Mendocino, which is like 3 hours north of San Francisco. And so that's a tertiary market. And so things in tertiary markets in general are a lot cheaper. And so, for instance, this one is listed for 1.95 for 11 rooms. And so it's not awful considering a house here in Palo Alto is probably like 3 million. um, but yeah, it just depends on where you're at.
That's very cool. So, we haven't done a hotel. It's on Lauren's bucket list.
It
That
is.
might be
I
our
do want to do a
next
hotel at some
project.
point.
Let's do one together.
Yeah,
I'm open.
I think that might be the next thing we venture into. Right now, we've got an apartment building outside of Dallas that we acquired about 2 years ago, and we don't have partners. We didn't raise money and just doing all with our own cash, and it's tough. Everything that you talked about on all these flips is just like, coming at us. Things are costing more, the over budget, holding, taking longer to turn over. This was kind of a problem. I'd call it a problem property. There was a lot of tenants in there that were not the greatest tenants. So once we acquired it, we kind of had to cut everybody loose, basically, or kind of weed everybody out. It had a bad reputation, like drugs and just like cops were always there. And so we got a good deal on the building, but there was a lot of problems that came with that. And so it's taken us about 2 years to like turn around the reputation. And now people actually want to live there. Now, when we have open units, it's like we get all these applications. And so now they're getting filled because they were just sitting for a long time. It was a combination of having the wrong property management company in place and, just trying to get rid of this bad reputation that the building had before. But we've got a really good property manager right now, and the reputation's kind of gone from before. So now things are turning around and we're starting to, cash flow positive on it. And we've got a few more units to finish up, but then we'll be starting to eye that exit. But it's been a learning process. That was our first commercial deal. So it's definitely been a learning process. But like all the things you say, like everything that can go wrong usually goes wrong, especially these older buildings like plumbing, electrical, and just all kinds of things that need to be taken care of. But we'll get there on the boutique hotel. I think that'll be in the works at some point soon. So we'll see.
I want to jump back to your podcast. From the people that you have interviewed, do you see any sort of like common theme of people with wins that they've had?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just consistency, honestly. I mean, I think a lot of people I've seen, like, you just gotta be okay with not really making it at least, like, not even big, but just not even really seeing returns until at least, like, year 3 or year 4. And so if you don't have, like, the grit or just like, drive to get through the first couple years, like, I think it'd be really challenging, but you just gotta go in knowing that it's gonna take a long time to do it and just be okay with delayed gratification. Because a lot of these people, yeah, just go through so many different things in the beginning, but as we all know, just so many things go wrong. And so I think you just got to have that grit and ability to just navigate through uncomfortable situations and conflict.
Yeah, that's really good. Brings up another question. What are you doing this full time? Is this your full time gig with real estate, or what is your background?
Nope. So I say this is my main hustle. This is like what I'm identifying as real estate investor and podcasters, social media brand builder. But my background is actually in nursing, and so I've been a nurse for almost 11 years now. I'm a pediatric nurse at Stanford in the operating room, and so I usually work 24 to 36 hours a week. My commitment's only 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a week. But I always try and pick up whenever I can. And so I'm grateful because I have a lot of flexibility. And so if I'm only able to work 2 or 3 days a week, I'm able to allocate the other 2, 3 days a week to real estate and podcasting.
That's awesome. And you're married, right?
I am married.
Does she have any involvement with the real estate? Do you guys do this together, or is this just kind of your thing?
It's just my thing for now. She's in school right now to be a nurse practitioner. And so she's doing that while also still working full time. So she's pretty busy with everything. But I have all the support from her in the world, which I am very appreciative of. She said that any given time when she's done with school, I can quit and go full time into this if I want. And so I think, although she's not involved directly in the business, I think just having her support is just like the most the best thing in the world.
Absolutely.
That's huge. We talk about alignment a lot, just having our goals aligned. If you don't have that and aren't like on the same page, it makes it a lot tougher, I think. Because it's, you go through tough times, but having somebody you can lean on that sees that end goal makes it a lot easier and strengthens that relationship for sure. So what's your plan? Do you plan to keep your nursing job? Is that something you're looking to exit? What is your long-term goal there?
It honestly changes every single day. I think last year I put a lot of pressure on myself saying, like when I was doing the flipping, I was like, flipping will be a very easy way to replace my income. And so I was kind of just telling myself by the end of this year, I was going to quit. And so I was just putting a lot of pressure on myself and I found myself being very unhappy. And so this year, I'm trying to give myself a lot more grace and just being okay with it. Like, everyone kind of has their own lane and your own journey. And it's okay to just like be whatever your own pace is. Just compare yourself to yourself. And I think that eventually would like to leave nursing. I think when it becomes like really an issue and like conflict of time, I think that's when I'll realize that I'll need to quit nursing. But as of right now, I'll probably stay in it for a little bit. I think it's such an untapped network too of like obviously high income earners. Like I work with a lot of anesthesiologists, a lot of doctors, a lot of other nurses who I think would really benefit from like say when I start to raise capital and give them access to other opportunities that I know that they probably don't know about. And so I think if I just get one or two references or one investor who's a doctor, I think I'd be in. And so I think even if I just stay, it's called per diem, where you work maybe like one shift a month. I think that would probably be like a deal setup. So I'm able to keep that network.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a huge network to have. So that's really smart taking that approach. Um, Let me ask you what not your podcast or our podcast necessarily, but just podcasts in general. There's so many podcasts out there, and a lot of real estate podcasts. What advice would you say sounds good on a podcast, but it fails in real life?
Um, I think besides being on a podcast, just other advice that I've heard from other real estate investors and just going to conferences in general is that you have to stay head down, focus on one investment strategy for 5 years and just like put your blinders on. I think that holds true to a certain degree, but I also think for me, like my experience, knowing that it's okay to pivot after 3 years is totally okay. Like, yes, shiny object syndrome is a real thing, but it's also important to like realize like if you go 5 years here and realize at the end of 5 years you hate it, it's like that's 2 years that you wasted or 3 years that you could have went and perfecting another investment opportunity. So I think it's important just to just try new things. That's kind of just life in general. That's how you figure out what you do and don't like. Like I think it's impossible to just commit to one thing and just know that that's what you're gonna like for 5 years or 10 years or however long it takes.
I love that. I think I say this all the time, but I think, our parents' generation, this is a lot of people, but they have that dream of like buying their forever home, right? And we talk about this all the time. Like we don't think we'll ever have a forever home, mostly because I think we like doing projects, we like changing things, we like being able to kind of move around. We'll probably have a longer term home at some point, but it's okay to pivot and it's okay to not go and we talk about this in so many aspects of our life, like even what we're doing right now. The plan that we had set and, you know, the plan that we had in place is not necessarily the direction we're going with, and sometimes that can be hard to realize that you're not on the plan or on the path, but it's okay to pivot and take those kind of turns as they come.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've pivoted a lot of times in my life and getting up there in age, and I've had a lot of businesses that I've started and failed and pivoted, and it's, yeah. So that's okay, but you learn a lot along the way too. So even though something doesn't work, you learn a lot and you take that expertise into the next strategy. So you can leverage that as well.
That kind of brings me to my next question. What is something that you've changed your mind on about in business?
Just something that I think we all learn from is just the ability and need to hiring help and just really focusing on the tasks that drive the most amount of like revenue and put the most progress forward for you. So instead of just doing everything yourself, just really trying to hire someone else who can be really good at something that you suck at or hate doing, and then you can just focus. Like for me, maybe it's just capital raising. That could be a really important task, whereas someone else could totally handle all the bookkeeping or back end admin stuff that I don't like doing.
You
I
know
think
this
that's really how
well.
you grow and
Yeah.
scale.
No, that's something I'm like taking to heart with my businesses, and not just the real estate, but we have a printing company as well. And in just hiring, whether it's, a virtual person or an in-person assistant, or just implementing AI and leveraging AI to handle a lot of these tasks that are like, doesn't make me money doing this task. I shouldn't be focusing my time on this task, but the task needs to be done. So just learning to kind of let go and realize these little things I don't need to do, even if they're not done. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so even if they're not done 100% perfect, having somebody else do it so I free up my time to do something that's actually bringing in revenue is a much smarter play. So I'm pivoting my businesses to that model right now.
You're not kind of a perfectionist. You
Yeah,
are.
it's a problem.
Uh,
It's hard for me to let go.
I think we're
I
all
had offered
I think we're
many
all a little
times to come
neurotic.
on and like help him, and we quickly realized that would not be a good partnership in that sense with the business. But I think something you've learned though is because you had hired people in the past, but you were not hiring for the right role.
Yeah,
So
I was still doing like, my email and all the stuff that I thought that I had to handle, and just hiring people to do shipping and delivery, just things that were added stuff I didn't have time for. But now I'm hiring to do like the core, the stuff that's like closer to me, like handling my email and calendar. And I don't even check my emails anymore because I have somebody else do that for me. And they just relay the important information to me that I need to actually handle. So that's freed up a lot of time for me to really focus on the business and other things like podcasts and the real estate stuff that we have going on. So
And you guys have 4 kids. I'm sure you guys want to just be the amazing parents that you guys are, right? I know when I have kids, I don't want to be doing a lot of this stuff myself, so I think it kinda just forces you to, build the life you want.
yeah, no,
you're so smart to start this before having kids. Like that would be my advice to you is like go as hard as you can right now. Stay up as late as you can. Do all of that right now while you can because it really is so much
yeah,
harder.
get your systems in place now and hire and delegate and get those systems to run without you before that. Because you throw kids into the mix, it's just a whole another animal.
Can I ask you guys a question about the kids? And
Yeah.
so
Yes.
I know it's your guys' podcast. You asked me the questions, but I'm just kind of curious. I mean, Lauren, you weren't on the podcast last time, so everyone always I talk to who has kids, they kind of feel like there's a fire under their butt now that they have these kids and more responsibility. Not even responsibility, but just like the desire to provide more for your family. Right? Do you guys feel like this has put a fire under your butt after having kids?
Oh my
Even
gosh.
more.
Absolutely. I think that that's probably the hardest thing about this position we're in right now is wishing, like I said, that we had done it before, started earlier so we were further ahead at this point. Because kids are expensive. Kids are like as much as you think they're gonna be, like double that at least. But I think too, it's just you wanna be there physically with them. You wanna have the time with them. And so you want to just not have to spend your days working. Like that's been the thing that I'll get emotional. It goes so fast, right? I mean, and granted, we've had our kids back to back. Like our oldest just turned 6 and we have 4, so our youngest is 9 months. So knowing that 6 years has already gone by in like a blink of an eye is crazy. Um,
Yeah, and I think definitely like everything that we do is for the family, for the kids. It's not like me like, oh, I want to have this all this wealth and be able to live this awesome free, life of freedom. It's like, okay, now we got a family. This is what we want for the family. We want to be able to do this. We want them to be able to go to this school, and everything kind of comes back to the family. It's like it changes your perspective and what your goals are. You may still have the same goal, but that goal is being allocated, like those resources are being allocated to different things now, because now you get this whole different perspective on who you're providing for and what you're trying to build for your family. So definitely now it's like, now it has to work. Before it was just me. It's like, I could just throw stuff at the wall. If it didn't work, it didn't matter. Now it's like, okay, that we have to make this work. This has to work because now there's a family that's like relying on this to work out. So yeah, it definitely lights a fire for sure.
and I think too, like I never thought I would not work. I worked until our second was 7 months old and I got laid off I was in the mortgage industry. And that was the biggest blessing, honestly, because I realized how important it is to be home with them right now because this time does go by so fast. And so creating something that while we're putting so much into this right now, the goal is that, it's not something we will have to be spending all our time doing as they get older, and we can still be present parents and, be able to just pick up on a whim and come to Arrowhead and do our podcast on the road and kind of do these things. That's my hope, at least from a mom's perspective. I know that's probably a little different for you, but
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely get everything in as far ahead as you can before you have kids. But, it's right around the corner for you, I'm sure. And once you start having kids, it goes fast. So,
Yeah, we're hoping to start a family later this year, and so there's definitely a level of pressure that I put on myself for sure. But I know that it's just going to exponentially increase my fire.
yeah.
Once
But then,
It
you don't
will.
have to have it again, you can do this with a family. That's one thing that we talk about a lot is people think that you have to put it off. You either have to do it and get there before you have kids, or you end up waiting until they're out of, in high school or whatever. We're doing this while we have young kids. So even when you have young kids, you can still make it work. It might be a little tougher, but you can still make it work for sure.
I think that's where the mindset and the alignment with your partner come into place, because you have to be on the same page with that and know that there's going to be sacrifices and things in the beginning. But if you have that common goal, that's what kind of keeps you going and keeps that fire lit. And that's huge. Staying aligned for sure.
All right. I got one more question for you. We talked a lot about, just taking action and getting going and getting started in your investing, journey. If someone feels stuck, but they keep consuming content, what do you think it is that they need to hear?
That's a good question. Just do it. It sounds as cheesy as it sounds. Just gotta get into it, honestly. You can read as many books as you want, listen to as many podcasts as you want, but nothing will prepare you for the actions and learning lessons that actually come from your experience and your own journey. And so, yeah, just take as much action as you can and just be okay with making mistakes, because the faster you get kicked in the nuts by life, the more lessons you'll learn. So,
Yeah, that's really good.
I love that. This is something I like to ask everyone, but is there one specific book that you've read that has kind of been a game changer for you or changed your mindset or really impacted you?
yeah, I think I've had many different books that have impacted me depending on where I was at in life, right? And so I think kind of just the one that everyone kind of talks about that was very eye-opening was just Rich Dad Poor Dad, just learning the differences between liabilities and assets. That was a really big one for me. When I was still in the very early stages of this, before real estate, just trying to learn how to be better with money. Set for Life by Scott Trench. That's another really good book. He's from Bigger Pockets. Um, but one that I read recently that I really liked was the Surrender Experiment. And so that's more so just being okay with just surrendering to life, and just being okay with where you're at in life, and just knowing that everything's going to fall into place how it's supposed to. I think we always try and just control so many different things, right? And as we know, everything's out of our control. And so just being okay with just where you're at in life and with your own journey, just trying to have a much better mindset has just been the most powerful thing to me.
I think my wife needs to read that book.
I was going to say, I'm going to take note of that one because I could definitely use that read.
Awesome. Well, Lorenzo, I really appreciate you coming on today. Where can the folks get a hold of you? I know you got your podcast, so we'll drop that in the notes. But what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, Instagram's definitely the best place. Lorenzo_Mercado _. I'm also on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. You can check out my podcast called The Lowdown. So, yeah.
Cool. We'll definitely put
I love
those
it.
both in the show notes. All right, man. I really appreciate you coming on today. Thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Rebuilding the Dream Studios.